Hey, everybody. So, the joint session of Congress this week felt more like the joint session of chaos, like we all just stepped into the twilight zone. The entire thing felt so surreal and was honestly hard to sit and watch. I feel like we're becoming numb, though, to this kind of decorum with our politicians, and that really unsettles me. My name is Monica Maybank, and this is the Holy Politician Podcast. On this podcast, we discuss politics, policy, and culture through the lens of truth and holiness. So if you haven't subscribed, please click that button now and share this podcast with three of your closest friends. So Trump's address to a joint session of Congress this week, sometimes known as the State of the Union, it seemed like it was reality TV, or even worse, the Twilight Zone, than an actual real life American policy presentation to the American public and to the world, no less. From Vice President Vance's constant laughter, if you saw him sitting there, everything seemed to be funny, to the Speaker of the House rolling his eyes and shaking his head. He really struggles with his ability not to wear his emotions. To Democrats holding protest signs here, there, and everywhere. And not to mention Rep. Al Green's blatant interruption of the president's speech. It felt like a Rod Sterling creation. Sans the moral lesson at the end. It was like, well, what was the point of the entire thing? Did it have a point? Is it me, or do politicians on both sides of the aisle seem to be more and more out of tune and out of touch with the everyday American? Are they even in touch with reality? There were so many things taking place on that House floor. It just looked like confusion upon confusion upon confusion, where one crazy thing was popping up right after the next. And I think Punchbowl News said it very well in their morning newsletter the day after with an article titled, quote, "The Golden Age of Pettiness." The article reads, "Screaming and yelling from the crowd, blaming and barbs from the podium. It's the era of pettiness. The trolling has become the focal point. The annual presidential address to Congress, once a dignified event that was the height of American political pomp and circumstance, has devolved into a tired display of pettiness and hyperpartisanship. We're not sure what the average American or anyone gets out of this anymore," end quote. And I agree. So, like I said, what was the point? What do you all think the point was with the joint address to Congress? Then I have another question for you. Why do you all think that politicians are so out of touch with their constituents? I'm just curious, what do you think? Do the constituents of Dallas think something like this is germane to a policy presentation that has implications on their everyday lives?
Oh no! It's a cultural divide. I'm gonna get it on the floor. You really about to do it? 40 acres in the mule. This is bigger than the music. You really about to do it? Yeah, they tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence. They get on it like that. Hey, I'm tripping, I'm sliding, I'm riding through the back like buck. Mustard on a beat, bro, deep boat, any rap. He a freak though, man down, call like Amber Lambs. Tell him breathe, let them boys to the cross, they walk around like T's. What's up with these?
Now, help me to understand, but what does that have to do with the cost of tea in China? Or more locally to Dallas, the cost of living in Dallas, where you need to make at least $90,000 a year to be comfortable. And then apparently, I discovered that I wasn't even supposed to be watching the joint session of Congress. I got a text message from one of my daughters saying, apparently, Black people are supposed to be boycotting this. My bad. I clearly didn't get the memo, and last I checked, I'm still Black. And so apparently the Blacks have their own separate State of the Union taking place at the same time as Trump's address. And this isn't their first time doing this, trying to divert the attention of the Black audience away from what's happened in American policymaking. They did this during Trump's inaugural address. And during his entire inauguration, there was like this marathon event of Black prominent figures just doing their own thing and making their own kind of pronouncements of what they think is important. And nothing wrong with that. I think that people should be able to have their platforms. But to do it during an inaugural address, I think, is misguided. And I think you should be encouraging people to pay attention to what's happening in policymaking, regardless of you agree with everything that a person is doing. So I'm just really not sure how helpful that was, but you're basically telling people and encouraging them not to participate in their own democracy. And I don't know why we would want that. Back to the joint session of Congress, there was a stunt. I'm sure you've heard of it by Representative Al Green. From what great state? The great state of Texas.
Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant at Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Texas strikes again. I'd say that was almost a home run for the great state of Texas. Y'all have some amazing representation in DC. Oh, but the other side of the aisle was super hype and just really in their normal rhythm to like the 800,000th degree. For some reason, Trump's speechwriter thought it was important to highlight this in his speech.
This is my fifth such speech to Congress. And once again, I look at the Democrats in front of me and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do. I could find a cure to the most devastating disease, a disease that would wipe out entire nations, or announce the answers to the greatest economy in history, or the stoppage of crime to the lowest levels ever recorded. And these people sitting right here will not clap, will not stand, and certainly will not cheer for these astronomical achievements. They won't do it, no matter what. Five times I've been up here. It's very sad, and it just shouldn't be this way.
The president said a couple of times in that clip, these people. Well, who are these people? Those people represent half of America. And a big part, if not more, and a big part of America, granted, that is racially and ethnically diverse. And to call them out in this way really just points to the dangerous rhetoric and nauseating divide between our elected officials in Congress. And so, as a speechwriter or as a person that's influencing and advising the president, what kind of language and rhetoric is this that truly is going to help unite an already significantly divided United States, and not to mention a hyper-partisan, super divided United States Congress? And so prayer is needed. I say this all the time. Prayer is needed. Prayer is necessary. So unless you want to live in the twilight zone in America, continue to pray. And I recognize that there is significant animus between the president and the Democratic Party. And from what I'm deducing of all the lawsuits and the shady things that have been taking place with all the alphabet soup agencies, FBI, CIA, et cetera, things that have been taking place behind our backs that we really just don't have any understanding about. The president has good reason for that animus and good reason to despise what he considers to be a Democratic Party that basically is usurping their power to try and control the narrative, to try and control the United States, and to try and manipulate the populace. However, the American people just want to be able to afford their groceries. They're really not interested in the backbiting, the back and forth, the hyperpartisanship. They could care less about that. I'm really curious even as to what percentage of the adult population even watched the joint session of Congress. American people just want to be able to afford their health care. And right now, it's looking like Medicaid is going to see some significant cuts, which can impact people's everyday lives. The American people just want their children to be able to have a shot at the American dream. What does that even look like today? Is the American dream something within people's grasp today? And the American people, particularly those of underrepresented racial and ethnic groups, they no longer want their race to predict whether they will end up in jail or flunking out of high school, which you can do today, predictive research and analytics to determine how many jail cells that they are going to create based on whether or not Black kids and Latino kids could read at the third grade level. Because there's a prediction that they are more likely to end up jail when they cannot read at the third grade. And so we should no longer be able to predict anything based on race. We should be able to have a conversation as responsible elected officials where people sit with reasonable decorum and respect in a joint session or a State of the Union address, regardless of who is standing at that podium. Just don't come. If you want to make a scene outside of that space. And so we have to maintain our vigilance as the body of Christ. We must have spiritual eyesight. Even when things don't appear as they should, things are never as they appear because we are in this world, but not of it. There is a spiritual world that governs everything that takes place every single day, even the second right now. And so we have to have a spiritual awareness and spiritual intelligence when it comes to these things that we see taking place. Yes, it looks like the Twilight Zone. Yes, it looks like reality TV. Yes, it's like, are we in the Matrix? Is this Inception, the movie? Am I dreaming within a dream within a dream? And so we have to have spiritual eyesight. Next week, unless God says otherwise, I want to highlight the impressively and progressively dark LGBTQ agenda and the public policies that are coming out of the state of California that seems to have no endpoint in sight. I don't know how much more left they can go on their LGBTQ public policy, but they are literally off the cliff. Nothing is too extreme in my home state, and that really breaks my heart. But I know that it breaks God's heart even more. So I appreciate you watching. Tune in next week. Like, share, comment, pray. God bless you.